everybody. Hello. We are in the election, and I've not turned on news. I feel like I poison ivy. I want to scratch it. I'm afraid if I start watching the news and listening to anything that's going on, not sure if there are any results coming in yet. It'll be like eating one potato chip. I'm going to stay there and not do anything. So I'm just avoiding it until about 8 or 8:30. Then after my work day's over, I'll have a drink. I'll sit down, be on Zoom with my friends. We'll watch it together. Well, I want to start tonight. Well, actually, tonight's topic, let me start you with that. So today I'm talking about fear, resiliency, and courage. It's basically about courage, but I don't think I could talk about courage unless we talk about fear and resiliency. So here's what I want to cover today. I want to talk about the world we live in. Can courage be learned? Can you develop it, improve it? Something called emotional agility. Is that a great expression, emotional agility? And 5 basic questions you need to ask yourself in order to have courage, and then we'll probably look at some tools, specific actions you can take. I like a quote that Mark Twain said, I think it was the year before he died. 99% of the things he worried about never came to be true. So we're living now in a world that requires courage. I don't think this is a layback, smoke your pipe, whatever the image is, smoke your vape, take a drink, and hang out. I think this is a time that requires action and personal responsibility. So it's a good theme for today: fear, resiliency, and courage. So I want to tell you about a personal story. A number of years ago, I was invited to give a talk to a group of people. Actually, the group was large. It was about 1,000 people, more people than I've ever spoken to, about a topic I had not really talked about before, but it interested me. So I figured if I learned the topic and gave a talk that would get me into the game. It would take me about 3 to 6 months to learn enough that I could figure out what to say. So as I was preparing for the talk, I felt pretty good. But I got to tell you, sitting there in the front row, waiting to be introduced, there were about 6 of us who were presenting, so it wasn't like I was the only one, and there were a lot of people talking. I really started to feel uncomfortable. I asked myself, what am I feeling? I said, this is fear. I'm afraid. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go up there. I think I was afraid of disapproval and feeling disconnected, and having people look at me afterwards and say, well, why did we invite him to give a talk? He was terrible. I started to go into what-ifing. You know that phenomena? What if they don't like me? What if I forget what I want to say? What if it's a dud? But then I thought to myself, what's my intention? My intention coming there was to really learn, to meet people in this new field of longevity, of how to live well and healthy and with vitality. And my intention for the talk was to make connection, to give people some information that might be helpful, to make some new connections. But I realized it needed courage, so I had to work myself up. And that's why this talk is really good, because I learned some things from that talk about courage. Okay? So overall, we live in I think Rick Hansen said, in a state of orange, a state of alert. Like if you're coming up to the traffic, I think I mentioned this last week. If you're driving up to an intersection, green could be light, orange, or red. We can go through green, but you got to be thoughtful. Be a defensive driver. Orange, really be cautious. Maybe just stop anyway. Red, you better stop if you go into the intersection when it's red. You are really inviting disaster and collision. So we're on an alert status. 𝗖𝙧 psychiatrist who's done a lot of work with trauma and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, talks about the smoke detector that's back in our back of our head, not like an electronic, but it's a biochemical receptive organism that that's been around for millions of years, that helps us stay alert. So just in case, it says, look, I don't care if Moss or Diane or Bob or Jay or Derek is comfortable. I want you to survive, so I'm going to keep you on your toes. The problem is we don't know, since we don't live in the world of tigers, tigers and bears and what's the expression? Tigers, lions, and bears. We don't know if what we're afraid of is a real tiger or a paper tiger. So we worry about things like disapproval, and we really fret about it because there's something about disapproval that's very scary, which probably has to do with a fear of abandonment, a fear of disconnection. And underneath that is something really important. What do we want? We want to be connected. So fear and desire are connected. I'll talk more about that in a minute, in a little while. What is fear? Fear is, we can call it false expectations appearing real. It's a biochemical, emotional reaction when you think there's real danger or imagined danger. Resilience is, no matter what, you're going to bounce back. You're going to keep coming at it. Courage is have your fear and do it anyway. That's how they're related, okay? So do you have courage? Now, recent research suggests only about 1 in 3 people have courage, confidence to act when uncertain. Probably was higher before the pandemic and maybe before the current political, economic, racial tension. But 1 in 3, 33%, have confidence to take action when they're uncertain. Like if you're in a large classroom, being willing to stand up, raise your hand. After you do it, other people might do it, but only about 1 in 3, if that. About 50% increase, has been a 50% increase in anxiety over the past year. The problem with it, when we get anxious, we don't know if it's a fact or a story. Do we really have real evidence for it? And most of us cannot tell the difference. The mind cannot tell the difference. We have to really work consciously to distinguish, is this a real thing to be afraid of, or am I just worried about something that might happen? And by the way, do you think if you have courage, it means you're heroic and you're not fearful? I mean, what's the point in having courage if you're not fearful? Actually, it's like, for example, asking for a raise, asking for a job, going for an interview, asking somebody out for a date, going up to someone and apologizing where you kind of lost, you went on a rant, you said something that was hurtful and you're going to apologize, speaking up in a public, giving a public talk like I did, going for a medical procedure. No, we're going to have fear or anxiety, the anticipation, the apprehension that something might be wrong. And it takes courage. But the key is have your fear and do it anyway. But here's a what-if question. What if you could do anything you wanted without having fear? Do anything. What would you do? Would you apply for that job? Would you ask that girl out for a date? Would you quit your job? Would you tell your mate that you're unhappy? And if things don't change, you're gonna leave. So what would you do? Then the second question, if you had the courage to take action, even though you didn't know what was going to go on, but you didn't have the fear, who would you be? What would it feel like? How would you wake up in the morning? Would you wake up with dread? Would you wake up worrying? Would you wake up with a sense of optimism and bounce out of bed and say, I can't wait to move into the day and see what I experience? Well, what we do know is, I think Rick Hansen is right. We do live in a state of orange. It's been millions of years in the making. Yet, we have dreams, we have desires, wishes, don't we? So we need courage to go after our dreams and desires so that fear doesn't pull us back and keep us down. You don't want to go into regret. You know, when you think about you had the opportunity, you did not take advantage, you didn't speak up, you didn't ask that person out for a date, you didn't tell that person who was behaving badly to stop it. We didn't protect that little child who was being abused in a store. And later, as we're driving away, we feel some shame or embarrassment thinking, why didn't I speak up? So I want you to know, courage can be learned and can be strengthened. So do you remember a time when you had courage? Do you remember a time when you were scared or fearful, uncertain, but you took action anyway? And maybe it worked out. Maybe you're like in Little League and you're scared to death going up at bat and swinging that bat at that baseball, but you were trembling and maybe you struck out, maybe you didn't. But I would imagine, at least I would hope, that many of you, when you took action and swung at the ball and went after what you want and grabbed for that brass ring, you felt something. You felt some sense of pride. So afterwards, we often feel pride. Like I had to get some medical tests yesterday, and I was feeling uncomfortable with it. I woke up thinking to myself, I really don't want to go, I didn't want to. But then I said, what's going on? I said, I think I have some apprehension about the test. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Yeah, and it was going to be a bit uncomfortable. But then I said to myself, I've done other things that have been hard for me in the past, uncomfortable. So how does this compare to those other things? Isn't this like when I was in 5th grade and I went out for the Little League team? I wasn't that good, but I got up and swung at the ball anyway. Yeah, I struck out, but I got on the team. So I said, I'm going to go and do the test. And I did. I felt good about it afterwards. Oh, by the way, I'm really sorry. I apologize that I couldn't do the broadcast yesterday, but it was one of those days where, and I'm sure you've had this, one thing tumbled into another, and I couldn't get control of the day. I had 2 medical appointments. The second one, the doc was about 2 hours late. It threw me off. I couldn't have lunch. I couldn't get back home and get ready for my Mondays with Moss. I had to cancel 2 clients because I was so irritated and upset. I didn't have time to rehabilitate myself and do any recovery. So I had to say no, and I'll talk to them later tonight and tomorrow. So that was my day yesterday. But I'm glad I got up yesterday and went to the docs and got my procedure. So Susan David, a physician, did a TED Talk not too long ago about building resilience. And she talks about we live in 2 worlds. We live in the outside world, which can be scary at times. The relationships that don't work. Having an illness, dealing with someone who died, not that person, but having someone who died and you having to deal with the impact of death. Not getting the job you want, the disappointment. Having a competitive coworker who's not very nice to you. So things that work in life and physically sometimes don't work. It's hard. We have an internal world where we have our fears, our upsets, our desires, our dreams, our insecurities, our anger. And often we numb the pain, we numb it through denial, through addiction, drinking, drugs, sex, excessive purchasing. Often we have a belief, we have to show a happy face. We don't want to walk around gloomy and doomy, but we may have this attitude, I gotta act like I'm really happy. So you cease at times being yourself, and you can be in danger of developing the imposter syndrome, making believe you're somebody you're not. And what we really need, I think this is her expression, we need emotional agility, the ability to move and to adapt and to handle things as they come up and not just attack, freeze, or run away. So while we under anxiety and stress and worry have a tendency to deny, blame, and have shame, or we tell ourselves, shape up, smile, don't show people what we feel. We can get caught up in a tyranny of positivity, a tyranny of being too positive and not dealing with our upsets, burying upsets. The problem with it, the result of that, though, is when you shut down the feelings and you bury them, they get stronger. They get stronger. Whatever you resist persists. What you suppress oppresses you. So it amplifies. These feelings, they do not go away. These upsets fester. That's a good word. They fester. And we may develop a false positivity that does not increase our personal power. So we have tough emotions that are part of our daily life. It's a ticket to admission to life, a ticket to admission that we have tough things that we have to handle in the outside world and the inside world. And it's good to have a growth mindset, to be able to acknowledge, to have emotional agility. So I think it does take courage to live a life. It takes courage if you want to be a life navigator, to go after what you want and to bounce back and to keep going. And to do that, I think you have to have courage. And part of that is to be able to acknowledge your feelings, to, for example, if you're in a relationship that's not working, rather than burying it and blaming the person, to be able to say, I'm unhappy. I'm noticing I'm unhappy. And the courage is number one, acknowledge the feelings that you may be in a long-term relationship that you're not happy about. But the courage comes in, how do I talk about it? Do I have the skill? I'm not good at going to my mate or my spouse or my whoever it is and saying, look, I got to tell you, I'm having a really hard time with this. I'm not happy in this relationship. I'm not sure if you are, but we have to talk about it because at the rate we're going, I don't know if I can keep going in this relationship. That takes courage, okay? In a way, you could look at emotions, even fear, as data. Data is just like information that you can use to problem solve. Because if you're disappointed or upset with a relationship, it probably means you want something. You have a desire that's not being taken care of. And the emotion is telling us something, and we can get into action and think about what is it I really want, and what are the actions I could take. So what is the emotional agility, basically? What's my emotion telling me? Fear, I'm scared, I'm nervous. But what's the underlying thing I want? I want, perhaps if it's affection, or I want a better job. What action can I take is a good question. And then, do I have fear? Is my fear a paper tiger, or is it real? And can I take the action, and can I give myself a kind of a little boost? I think I used the expression last week, attack the dog, go for it. So I think we need to ask ourselves 5 basic questions to build our courage. Number 1, ask yourself, what is it you want to desire? Number 2, what actions do you need to take? 3, what's your fear of taking those actions? 5, am I telling myself a story, or is it true? And if I know my actions and I take the actions, can I bounce back even if it doesn't work and not fall apart? Can I have resilience and recover? And here are some specific tools you might want to think about. So I'm going to give you a bunch of them, maybe 8 to 10, and look at any of them that grab your attention. Well, one I've already talked about, know what you want, know what's important, and go for it. Number 2, identify the obstacles. 3, think about what's the underlying need if you're afraid to take action. For example, when I was giving my talk, it was I wanted to get some professional status. I wanted to learn something. I wanted to sell some books. Actually, I think I sold 100 books that day. Yeah. I wanted to meet some new colleagues and open up some new learning for a growth mindset. Be the wizard. Remember we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, which is remember a time that you were successful. Feel it. Think about what you did, that you took action. Give yourself some confidence and bring that state into the situation that you're afraid of. Go in and take action, attack the dog. Here's a good one. Instead of asking yourself, what will happen if I do it? Oh my God, if I ask my boss for a raise, oh my God, what could happen? Instead of asking yourself that question, why not ask yourself, what's the best thing that could happen if I took this action? What's the best thing? Yeah. And if I don't take action, how am I going to feel afterwards? That's a good way to motivate yourself, guys. What's the best thing that can happen? And if I don't take action, do I want to live with that regret? All right? I think we talked about a couple weeks ago. Hi, Thomas. We talked about having realistic optimism, like Helen Keller. Have your fear, but have a sense that things will work out. Like right now, it's about 4 o'clock on the East Coast, and there's an election going on, and I have my concerns. I know who I want to win. You probably do too. You may have your fears and concerns, but hopefully you have a sense of realistic optimism. One way or the other, we will survive. We will prevail as a nation, as a culture, as a community, in our relationships. We're not going to go to civil war, okay? So it takes some energy to maybe maintain that focus. Okay, another one good thing, this comes from Roosevelt. I'm not sure if it's Teddy Roosevelt, but it's do one thing every day that scares you. Every day, do one thing that scares you. So I have a client in California who I'm coaching, and she's very much of a type A. I'll do it myself. I should do it myself. And as a result, she gets overloaded and sometimes just doesn't know what to do and gets scared because she thinks she should know everything. And I've been coaching her to stop being a perfectionist and start asking people for help. And she's been doing it. She's been saying, hey, I'm struggling with something. I'm not quite sure what to do. I really want to do a good job here, but can you give me some help or coaching? And I have another guy I'm seeing here, a younger guy, who's about 17, and he's so desperate to have a girlfriend, but he's scared to death of talking to girls. I can relate to that. I was that way when I was about 16, 17. And so what he's doing is he's learning to do one thing every day that scares him. Say hi. Even if he doesn't know the girl. Hi, how you doing? Hey, good to see you. With a big smile. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. And when they see him after a day or two around the school, around work, they smile back and they ask him, hey, Jake, how you doing? Okay? Whoever his name is. So he's doing this one scary thing a day. Not a big thing, but a small thing. Goes back to that old quote, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. One small step. Okay? Here's a good one. I'm not sure I got this. 10 seconds of courage. All you need is 10 seconds of courage. It's like when you're in the ocean and you're thinking about jumping in the ocean. You need 10 seconds. Jump in the ocean. It'll take about 10 seconds to adjust to the water. It's like put your foot in the water, but 10 seconds. If you are engaging, asking for that job, asking for the date, telling a person how you feel, asking for help, it's about 10 seconds that once you're speaking up and taking actions, your energy, the emotions will start to drop. They'll drop. You'll take a breath and you feel like, hey, now I can get some momentum. I took the chance. I wasn't a coward. I didn't run away. I didn't avoid it. 10 seconds. Another one is be yourself. Why not be yourself? What's the expression? Everyone else was already taken anyway. And stop comparing yourself to other people. It's a waste of time. They have their own problems. What's Shakespeare's expression? To thy own self be true. Be yourself. I think a big one, this comes from the Four Agreements by Ruiz. 4 Agreements. Take responsibility. Just go for what you want, win or lose, but it's your life, so go for it. Attack the dog. Stop waiting to be rescued. The cavalry is not coming. If it's a bad job, confront it, talk about it, go for another job. If you have a bad relationship, see what you can do to improve it. If it's toxic people you're involved with, take responsibility. Stop blaming and whining about it. Confront them or get rid of them. If you're having a hard conversation, take responsibility. Say, look, this is not acceptable. I deserve better. And have that conversation. Okay. Another one is stop making assumptions. Stop trying to figure out what they're thinking and feeling and what they want. We don't know. I'm not a good mind reader. I've been a therapist and a psychologist and a success coach for a long time, and I'm pretty good at reading people. But the only reason I'm good at reading people is I ask people questions. So don't make assumptions that you know what's going on. You don't. Speak your truth. Speak with impeccability. It's your feelings, your thoughts. Stop judging and attacking and blaming. Just say, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. May make sense to you, may not. But my goal is to really improve our relationship, so I want to tell you what's going on. And remember, this is really important. Whatever goes on, it's not personal, okay? They're just having their bad days, but they're not waking up thinking about how to make your day impossible or difficult. I think what's really important, another action, is have some self-compassion. You know, after I did my talk, I congratulated myself. I said, you know, I'm really glad I talked to myself once. I'm really glad you did this. I put my hand to my heart. Don't know if you can see it. Moss, I'm really glad you did it. Like talking to my child, Moss. I'm really glad you did it. It took a lot of courage. You were scared of disapproval. I'm proud of you. Yesterday, I went to the doctor's appointment afterwards. I was sitting in the car, finishing up my coffee, and I said, you know, I'm really glad you took care of that. Thank you for taking care of your body. I really appreciate that, okay? So give yourself some self-compassion. So in finishing, I want to give you a few quotes. One is by Ernest Hemingway. Courage is grace under pressure. It's grace under pressure. See if you can get a picture of that. Grace under pressure. This one's by Churchill. Fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. Fear is a reaction. It's automatic. You can't stop the fear. Courage, take the action anyway. Here's one by Steve Jobs. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know already what you truly want to become. I'm sorry about that. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know already what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Follow your instinct. Follow your guts. All right, so I hope you got something from today about fear, resiliency, and courage. Good luck. Let's get through this election. Let's get through tomorrow. Let's move into moving into 2021, and let's continue to navigate a great life. You deserve it. You deserve a great life, and you can have it. So with courage, let's go do it. Okay, I really look forward. Thanks for checking again. If you took the time to tune in live like Thomas Evans, I appreciate it. If not, I hope you catch it during the week. And that this gives you something you can go on to give yourself a little more backbone when things get scary. And remember, there are really very few tigers, lions, and bears. Bye, guys.